Welcome to Running on Reddit. Like and subscribe, or you'll be running on fumes. My girlfriend and I had planned to get married on Saturday. We wrapped up all our planning around Halloween. All that was left was to ring sometime this week and make sure everything was running smoothly. She called the venue and the person she spoke to asked her to confirm some changes she'd apparently made. My girlfriend had no clue what he was talking about, and he reminded her of all the changes that had been put in recently. We had not approved any of these changes. We were able to get some of it put back the way it was, but there are some things that we couldn't change back at such short notice. The venue forwarded us the emails asking for the changes, so we could look over them. Our communication was being done via an email account we created solely for wedding stuff, and the email address which asked for the changes is the exact same address, except the letters are switched round. The venue is very apologetic for not calling us directly, but can only fix so much of it at this stage. We think we know what happened. The whole time we were planning the wedding we got pushback from both sets of parents, and the stuff they had the biggest issues with have all been changed. I'm willing to bet that all of this was related to at least one of our respective parents. We don't know anyone who would want to mess with us or the wedding this badly except our parents, who got mad when we told them they couldn't financially contribute to the wedding because they were trying to trade their money for whatever wedding stuff they wanted. Right now the stuff that we wanted that is still in this wedding is my suit, the venue and the DJ. My girlfriend has gone to pick up her dress and she's not heard from the shop, so we are assuming that hasn't changed. I'm calling round everyone, and it looks like the menu has been changed, as has the guest list and the cake. We paid for the wedding we'd planned, and it looks like any additional costs from the changes, such as the extra people, were paid for by someone else, but they wouldn't give me any of the card info for legal reasons. We probably won't be speaking to our parents again after this, unless one of them owns up, in which case we'll just stop speaking to that one. But this feels like a joint effort as it's dealt with both sets of parents' complaints. Before my girlfriend left to get the dress, she gave me permission to post this as we are seriously considering eloping. We have the marriage certificate here, the honeymoon is unaltered, and exactly what we wanted, and there's a few appointments we could make between now and Saturday at the town hall to get the certificate legally signed/filed. However, we now have around 200 people attending this wedding in 3 days. Our original guest list was about 100 including families and plus ones. People have booked hotels, planes, trains, and are coming from other countries to be here. None of these people have done anything to us, and would be getting caught in the crossfire if we were to elope instead. Would we be the dumb heads? Update: I posted in the group chat I have with all 4 parents that someone has been screwing with the wedding. We've found the MLA used, and we'd be tracking the IP address to a device and location. This was all absolute bullcrap. We don't even know how to find an IP address. As soon as I said we'd be tracking the MLA, all started pointing fingers and accusing each other. It looks like all 4 of them were in on it together. Still not sure what we are doing about the wedding, but all 4 parents are uninvited. We're thinking that we might elope for the ceremony and then have the reception as planned. It's all the same party/venue and we won't get money back because of the number of people who are coming from all over the place. The parents must all be crazy. I can't believe that they would all make changes and ruin their children's wedding. Bride sends invoice along with invite. Several years back, a friend we are no longer friends of mine got married. When I got the invite there were 2 inserts. One was directions to reception location and one can only be described as an invoice. It said, "Thank you for attending our wedding. Based on your current standard of living, we are requesting a gift of cash in the amount of $100 or equivalent gift from our registry." Later I found out that everyone had a different amount based on what this bride thought was your annual salary. So my parents received one that said $350, and upon talking to the bridesmaid of honor, hers said $750. I didn't go to the wedding. Should have sent the bride an invoice for the hotel, car rental, gas, and food. Entitled Mom Brings Her 4 Kids to an Adult-Only Wedding. I attended an adult-only wedding for a co-worker a few days ago. The actual ceremony was in a very small church, so it was mostly family and close friends, but the reception was for roughly 250 people. The reception was at a very elegant hotel ballroom. not child friendly in any way. Crystal stemware, expensive linens on the table, etc. About 1/2 hour into the reception, a commotion started that made everyone stare. Entitled mother is arguing with the wedding planner loudly. Me, being the nosy broad that I am, inched closer to hear. Turns out entitled mother brought her 4 young children to the reception, even though the invitations clearly stated adults only. The entitled mother insisted that her kids, I'm guessing at ages, but the oldest one looked 8ish and the youngest was under a year old, were super well behaved, so it was fine. Now keep in mind this was around 7:30 PM. Wedding planner was having none of it. She insisted that children were not allowed, and she had to leave. In a last-ditch effort to get admitted, entitled mother shouted at the bride. The bride went over and listened to her for a moment and then said in a syrupy sweet voice, of course you can come in, entitled mother, but your children cannot. She turned on her heel and went back to her new husband. Entitled mother flipped a nut, yelling about how she was invited, couldn't find a babysitter, etc. 3 of the groomsmen escorted her and her kids to the door. Good thing the wedding planner and bride held their ground. Such a nice place combined with 4 children could have been a disaster. A few years ago, I organized a vacation for a group of friends. We rented a big swanky house in Los Cabos, right on the beach. When we were settling into our rooms, the agent/caretaker said that a woman had tried to rent the house after we'd booked it, and that she asked the rental company to contact us to see if we'd be willing to move to another location or change dates. It may have been possible. We looked at several other suitable places, but the agent said she was so unpleasant and entitled that he decided not to even try accommodate her, and that he didn't want to bother us. The morning of the wedding, a truck pulls in front of our house and starts unloading chairs and sound equipment down to the beach via a pathway to an open public part of the beach. No problem. The view was beautiful and certainly not restricted to just the homes overlooking it. Our group was hanging out by the pool overlooking the entire beach. By 1 PM about 50 or so chairs have been set up on the sand as the June temperature climbed into the high 90s. There was only a flower-covered arch for the bride and groom with no shade for anyone else. At about 2 PM the guests started making their way to the seats. Most were in dress suits. There were at least 8 men in cream-colored 3-piece groomsmen suits, and the bridesmaids were in, wait for it, gold lame with shawls. Everyone is sweating profusely and fanning themselves. One of the guests walked up to our pool area and asked if we have any water. We talked to him, and he said the bride had told everyone that we ignored her request to change our accommodations, and that we were pretty much the reason they were all dying of thirst and heat stroke. He was surprised when I told him that the first we heard of it was when we checked in. Even with the lie about our indifference, we sent down a rolling ice chest full of drinks and a few umbrellas. A few minutes later, the stuff came back onto shade. Evidently someone, or the bride, thought our offerings were an attempt to apologize for our supposed meanness. Whatever. So the wedding starts and we are watching the bride wobble across the sand, while the song Fix You by Coldplay is playing over the sound system, which is a really weird wedding song in my honest opinion. We are watching the nuptials from our pool area when we notice that one of the bridesmaids is starting to teeter. She was a little heavier and older than the other bridesmaids. Sure enough, she does a complete bowling pin and falls sideways into the sand. One of our group has training and first aid experience, so we went down to the beach with the previously rejected umbrellas and water. He immediately gets cold compresses onto her and elevates her feet. The whole time the bride is yelling at him, "You did this. And if you weren't so selfish," etc. The whole group just looked deflated and defeated as she started upbraiding everyone there. I finally said she'll be okay, and in few years, you will laugh about this. She said go flip yourself. Eventually the revived bridesmaid watched the restarted service from under our umbrella and the group left for a reception somewhere. When our stuff was returned, the man said that the bride was from a rich family in Minnesota, and she had been told the beach was too hot for a midday wedding involving people who may not have been used to the Mexican heat. She had been making everyone miserable for months with demands and requirements for her dream wedding. Sounds like the bridezilla is very unreasonable. Can't believe she blamed OP's group, even though it was entirely her own fault in the wedding plans. A former friend of mine asked me to be her matron of honor. I was really excited for her, but when I found out I was pregnant, I offered to let her replace me. She assured me it would be fine. That meant she still expected me to do everything. It was shocking how she changed over the course of the months leading up to the wedding. She had been a very sweet and generous person, almost to a fault. But she took every opportunity she could to cash in on her wedding. She asked friends and friends of friends to get services for her for free, but was really demanding about it and super critical. She expected the bridesmaids to be with her 24/7 2 days before the wedding. I had to let her sleep over at my house because she was re-virginizing and couldn't stay at her apartment because she had been living with the groom for over a year. We found out a week before the wedding that she had booked all of us to go with her to a salon to have our hair and makeup done with her. It would cost us $200 each. All of us thought we'd do just fine with our own hair and makeup, but she wanted it to be a fun girls' day. The other bridesmaids had to get sitters as their husbands were golfing with the groom. Then, it turns out that the actual cost of hair and makeup was only $75. The difference was to pay for her hair and makeup plus the extra time for the limo to take us to the salon and then to the church. The reception was a mess because she refused to see the groom before the wedding, but then wanted a ton of pictures together after the ceremony. All the guests were waiting at the reception, but she insisted no one could be served anything until the bride and groom arrived. 90 minutes later, when we tried to hurry her along, she said all those people can wait. It's my day. The appropriate way to refer to those people is your guests. All I'll say about the fact that I had to manage the money dancers, Dumbiehead, your last name ain't Corleone. Then, around midnight, my husband and I had to shuttle all the presents from the reception to our house because we had been guilted early on into hosting a brunch the next day where she could open her presents and visit with family and the wedding party. I had originally planned on just doing fruit and bagels plus drinks, alcoholic and non, but she whined that it really couldn't be called a brunch if I didn't serve eggs, but don't just go buy a quiche. So after getting back and unloading the gifts and making sure the place was clean, I had to prep an egg casserole for the morning. Did I mention I'm 7 months pregnant at this point? The best part was that when we agreed to host, I asked her for a list of names so I could send out invitations. She told me she had already done it. I hadn't agreed to it, but she already invited people to my house. I asked how many people because, you know, details like that help with the planning. She couldn't remember, and whenever she did tell me a number, it changed. Also, after I left the reception, there was just a general announcement that everyone was invited. And that announcement was that it started at 10 AM when it was really planned for 11. Boy was I surprised when random people started showing up an hour early. The bride and groom didn't show up until noon, an hour late, and they were upset because most of the food was gone. But the final straw was when, months later, after I had my son, they came over not to see me and the baby, but to pitch my husband and I on a pyramid scheme. When we declined, she flew into a rage and said it was going to be my fault that they lost their house. We had helped them move 2 weeks prior. She's actually the one who ended our friendship. Nicest thing she ever did for me that year. Bridezilla sounds so manipulative. I wonder how long their marriage lasted after losing their house to their failed pyramid scheme. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever been pitched a pyramid scheme. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe and turn on the bell or you'll be running on fumes. See you in the next video.